Doug, thanks for sharing that. I was just going to say as a validation that my dad was a Bible thumper. He was Southern Baptist, brimstone and fire, and he always had a hard time with me and all the stuff that I knew and my near-death experience, especially. But a couple months after he passed away, he came to me in a dream and he said that I was right. There is no hell, it doesn't exist. It was all man created. But then he said one of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life. And I've listened to Greg Braden, Wayne Dyer, the list goes on and on. He goes, Mark, you seem to be in this race to be perfect. You might want to get out of a race that has no finish line.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. What you're about to hear is 6 men who I've previously interviewed individually on my podcast, all together in a round table. And so the 7 of us get together and discuss various things about men's intuition. And initially it wasn't thought of that it would be a podcast, but we recorded it and I found it very interesting, and I think you will too. And I'm just going to get you to really quickly go across my screen here. And we'll start with Paul, just if you can give us 2 or 3 minutes of who you are, where you are, what you are.
Doug, hey gents. My name's Paul Marwood. I'm living just outside of Perth, Western Australia. I'm an intuitive life purpose coach, founder of solution meditations and several other new generation modalities, kind of through channel methods. I'm just really excited to be here with you guys. Literally, my life purpose is to be here and help and support of other people. Primarily, most of my clients are ladies, but honestly, I get really excited when I get around men that are, focused in making work on themselves and changing themselves. So that's really ultimately my passion. But most of my clients are ladies, and I'm just excited to be here. Thank you to be great friends with Doug, been on his podcasts. We've had some great chats, talking about the Wim Hof method and things like that. As I say, I'm really focused on learning the deeper levels of self-improvement, myself, the universe, one might say. And I'm here. I'm glad to be here. So thank you, Doug.
Excellent. And Eric, I didn't see you on my little screen here. I'm not sort of that well versed at being a Zoom host, and I just noticed there's a Laro and I spotted you in. So we've got another one from the American team coming in. But right now we're going from left to right on my screen, and Andrew, you're up.
Thanks, Doug. And thanks for the invite to jump in with this group. Very brief history of me is been in emergency services all my life. And probably getting close to the end of that journey. Along the way, I've always been a person who's taken interest in individual and team function, how humans operate at their best and not so best. Been in senior executive roles, which had me having accountabilities in that space, and I think now I'm very focused on continuing the learning journey for myself, and probably taking a role more as a mentor to others, which I have been very active in for a number of years now, but always looking to understand other ways to do it, or do it differently, or do it better. So just to link me to Doug, I worked with Doug probably 20 years ago when he was still in the fire and emergency sector. And of course, most people would know what Doug's journey is in terms of heading off to Micronesia. Pleasure to be here. And again, Doug, thank you to you for the invite.
No worries. And was it yesterday, I launched Andrew's episode, and that was my 100th episode. And we've gone back, and so we were firefighters together. We've been in some pretty hairy situations together. And then when I did move to Micronesia and had my scuba dive business, Andrew followed me over there twice and came over for a holiday, and we scuba dived with his wife and children, and and then so it's been a pleasure to Yeah, because there's no other firefighters I know who really like to talk about intuition. So, yeah, Andrew's welcome to the team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our firefighter cohort, and this is probably a more broader problem across the whole Western part of the world, tend to be a bit more traditional. And even recently, can you hear me still?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
good.
we got
Sorry, I had a message come up saying my internet was crappy. Even recently, hearing people still offer to take the other person outside so they could sort out their disagreement. I'm thinking, oh my God, how we haven't come very far in some respect, but that's life, and we keep working on it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, Mark, you're next up on my screen.
Hello, my name is Mark Patterson. I am in the Asheville, North Carolina area in the United States. Let's see, God, I have spoken at conferences and expos all over the world since 1997 about my near-death experience and just being intuitive from my childhood and doing sound healing and sound therapy. So I'm real excited about this opportunity because men tend to be shunned for knowing shit that we're not supposed to know, and like just have like me, like I still see auras, I still see lights around people, I still hear the voices, I still have the information in my dreams, and it's not like it's more accepted when a woman does it, but if guys do it, we're crazy, or or it's not acceptable. And unfortunately, and I hope that more of this happens around the world as a collective, so it does become so that men give themselves permission to express their feelings, to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm feeling, because it's not exactly validated, especially with men. So Doug, again, thank you.
No worries at all. It's good. And as you can see, we've got a diverse group here. And now we're about to go over to Phil, and he's got his own story, quite different again. So come on down, Phil.
G'day, guys. I'm just celebrating the fact that I've retired. Well, I'm just on my last job. I've got about 4 days after 40 years as a builder. So I'm passionate about health and fitness, teaching a boxing trainer, teaching people how to box. Massive believer in the power of the mind and what it can achieve, visualization, self-belief. And, once you harness that, positive self-talk, all those factors, that the dynamic that comes out of that, very hard to explain. But I've seen it firsthand. I've demonstrated it myself after achieving 2 world records as an endurance athlete. Doug asked me in a podcast recently, about, when you hit the wall. And I quoted Cadell Evans, a famous Australian endurance cyclist that rode the Tour de France. He said, there is no wall, it just hurts. He said, you don't go through the wall and then, all of a sudden it becomes easy. It's just hard all the time. During my first world record, there were periods of time that I can't even remember. And I think in a sort of a romantic notion, that's when people whose energy, past and present, that I called on, they stepped in to help me and carry me through. And Doug and I spoke about this, and I thought, is he going to think I'm crazy saying this? But he sort of empathised with me. He said, no, he said, Phil, I hear where you're coming from. So that was really nice, and it's great to be amongst a bunch of like-minded people. Sorry I missed the first get-together 2 weeks ago, but Happy New Year, guys, and I'm glad I'm here.
Thanks, Phil. All right, Jon, you're up next.
Hey, guys. Good to meet you. I'm Jon Samnick. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. I'm an executive transformation coach. I used to be a lawyer, originally from New York City. Moved out to Los Angeles. This year will be 18 years. Doug and I had a great conversation a few months ago. I think I was around episode 85 or so. And we went to places that I've never talked about before on podcasts or in speeches. So that was an interesting experience to kind of lead into some of the experiences of my childhood, synchronicity, a bit about intuition, of course. Just a great conversation with Doug. So I thought I'd pop in here and see what was going on. A little bit more about me. I was living in New York City during the 9/11 experience, which really shaped what happened in my life after that. And my parents are both now deceased. My mom died just about a year ago. And so she's been showing up in lots of ways, Doug. We talked about some of that on the podcast, but recently she's definitely around us. So excited to see where this conversation goes. And just good to meet you guys and to be with like-minded people, especially men.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Eric, lucky last. Looking forward to and I think Eric, I can't even remember what number your interview was, but it was the longest ago.
Yeah, I think it was way back.
Yeah,
Like a year and a half.
We're due for another one. Yeah.
Yes, we need that was, I think that was my first one, and I was kind of like, but I'm good for a second one anytime you want to do that one.
Okay.
No, my name's Eric Longoria. I'm out of Arizona. I'm actually Army veteran as well. I was in the war, Iraq war in 2003. Back then, 3 tours to Iraq. My medical retired out with some service-connected injuries and found myself to a dark, long road of trying to figure myself out. And I've had intuition my entire life. I just didn't realize it because they call it the women's intuition. So we didn't really think we even have it. So I go through life. I basically found intuition. Good thing I did because my brother took his life. I couldn't help him out. I was pretty much in the same path until I found intuition, and I started looking into the heart and mind and the whole aspects of the inner awareness. And once I did that, I found myself on a mission to be an intuitive breakthrough coach, helping individuals release their own arrows within themselves to find their own truth and their own compass. I'm also looking to be teaching intuition as well, possibly in the military sector as well. So, and I just launched a book in October, which became international bestseller in 6 countries.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, and as you can see, we've got a diverse group. And if I brought in some of the ladies that I interviewed, it would get even more diverse again. And I love it, like that we've got Phil the Builder, who's a boxer, Mark, who's had a near-death experience, like totally on the other side, Andrew, who's like, senior executive with emergency services dealing with governments and all sorts of crazy stuff. John been through his 9/11 experience, and and then John, what was that mountain you climbed? Like that 24-hour?
Yeah, it was actually a 36-hour endurance event. So like Phil, I call myself an endurance athlete, although I haven't set any records. But that event is called 29029, which is considered to be the height of Mount Everest. And a friend of mine out here in the States created a series of events where you could Everest, so to speak, over a 36-hour period on ski mountains in the off season, which for us is June through September. And I did a podcast with them just after I did the podcast with you, Doug, and we talked about my experience on that. And so happy to share a link to that podcast. It was a really moving experience.
Cool. And then I think the only one I haven't mentioned there is Paul. And Paul's he used to be a rally car driver, and while he was setting up one day on the side of the road, a non-rally car come down the road at 100 kilometers an hour or 60 mile an hour and smashed into him and should have taken his life, but didn't. And in the weeks or month or two after that, he had a crazy spiritual out there on the edge of everywhere experience. And just to use the word life-changing, I think would be an understatement. So we've, it's Yeah, I just love talking with you guys and other guys each week. Just so podcasts about intuition. Is anyone, and I haven't prepared any of you guys for anything here, we're just winging it, but has anyone had in the last few weeks or last year, not won't say this year because it's so new, you know, in the last few months or year, an intuitive situation that you just comes to mind, pops in, and you'd like to share? Anything particular? Any hands up?
Yeah, I was just going to mention to John, and again, sorry about your mother's passing. Sorry about that loss. My mother came to me in a dream about 3 or 4 months ago, saying that she was getting ready to leave, make her transition, and it's almost on a daily basis now. Whether I'm walking or at work, her etheric body pops into my energy field and goes, "Mark, now remember this. Mark, do this. Make sure this is done." Even though I talk to her on a weekly basis, she is coming to me, spiritually and saying this stuff, like in the middle of work. "Mark, don't forget to play ABBA. No boo-hooing. Play disco music. We're no one's crying. We're celebrating." So that's pretty crazy. And then I don't know if Paul knows this story or not, but Dale Earnhardt Jr. tells a story that he felt that he was in a car accident, not involving in racing, where he was pulled out by an unseen force that saved his life. He's told that story many times. Yeah, it's a true story.
Real cool.
So that's just an example of what I've been experiencing lately with my intuition, especially with my mom. Yeah, kind of strange. Yeah.
And I don't expect anyone else to have, like, because Mark's like he was at 16 when he had his near-death experience. So his whole life, this spiritual stuff just flows in for him.
You can make a movie. You can make an X-File movie about my life. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. John, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to share?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thanks for that, Mark. Yeah, my mom, who died in January after a long illness, was the closest person I was to in my life, other than my wife. And she and my wife had this really interesting connection where, and I really do feel like men experience intuition we don't experience the same intuition as women, right? It comes to us in different ways. And I think it kind of depends where you are on your own journey to see kind of how open you are to experience what's coming into you. But my wife has a tendency to kind of catch things in dreams. And I feel like it comes to me in different ways. But what recently happened was there was a certain number that was associated with my mom. And my wife said to me, this is about a month ago, your mom has been showing up in my dreams. I feel like she's here with us. There's something going on. And I got an email the next day from a family kind of financial advisor who's distributing her estate, who said, "We found an extra bank account and your share is," and it's exactly associated with that number. And it just was like, I mean, it's so powerful. I don't know if that's intuition. I don't know if that's just us having a spiritual connection. I don't know exactly what the label is for it, but it definitely made me feel like there was that much more beyond sort of my thinking mind.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I won't begin to try and explain what it is, but it's that there's a reason that it happened, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, excellent. Love that. Yeah, and that's those synchronistic moments where it's like, oh, two unusual amounts. Yeah.
I would like to share one. I think when it came
Go,
to my
Eric.
book being launched, that's a really cool story. My wife, she works for a nonprofit organization called E2E, and they're out of Canada, and it's called Mount Seymour. And they do a fundraiser up there, and they have another one coming up in June. And my wife couldn't make it, but for whatever reason, something was telling me you need to go. You need to go and serve, go help out. It's they're building a school in Liberia, Africa. It's for funds for that. And so I was like, I don't know, babe. I feel like I gotta go. And usually my wife would be like, no, don't go. She'll usually say no. You know what I mean? We'll have like a conversation and then but something told me that I needed to go. She's like, well, I'm going to go and help, but I feel like I'm going to meet up. And then again, your mind goes, well, of course you're going to meet somebody. There's going to be people there. You know what I mean? So you start analytically like dissecting it, whether it's going to be true or not, like, make sense to it. And then I'm like, I don't know, babe, I think I'm going to meet somebody there. And I feel like, I don't know, I need to go. So I go up there, and then all of a sudden of course I meet people, I talk, and we go hiking and whatnot. And then there was someone that spoke there, and I ended up collaborating with her. And she was a publisher. And I was like, okay, this book thing's been popping up in my mind for a while now. Like, it's time to tell your story, Eric, or whatever. So I was like, okay, we need to connect, because I didn't know I was going to meet you. And then when I came home, I told my wife about it. She was like, okay, cool. But the interesting thing is that I could have picked anybody. I could have picked someone in the US or someone, whatever. But to actually make that intuitive hit of saying, hey, I need to go and see what happens. When I did that and started the book, I mean, I didn't know what was going to come about that. But to go ahead and hit international bestseller in 6 countries, I'm like, okay, well, that was the reason. It was to connect me there to really get my story out, and I think the book was called Ignite Your Purpose. It was kind of like how myself was through my transition before I found who I was, So I would say that, yeah, that was like in October. So it was like, and it launched, it like continued to launch, and it went really well. And I'm like, okay. And my wife looked at me, she's like, okay, I'm gonna have to start going with you. Like, she's starting to get used to now when I say something, she's like, okay, when you're that passionate about that, I'm gonna go with you, because there's a good chance that you're on mark, so.
Thanks for that, Eric. Anyone else? Andrew?
Yeah, not so much an example, but I've got great clarity now that this stuff impacts us every day. And if I try to look back even over the last 24 hours, where intuitive thoughts or intuitive messages or whatever are trying to find their way to me. And so I think what's that meant for me is that I'm trying to be more open to something that maybe previously I would have either had my logic head on, or maybe too emotional head on, and maybe disregard something which was a good opportunity. So I think it's just an acknowledgement that this stuff is every day, more than we probably know. And for me, it means I'm trying to be open to things more now in my life than ever before. Thanks.
Yeah. And I'd imagine, like, some of I know Andrew's level in emergency services and all the government rot that he would have to put up with, and the meetings he would be in. I've been in much lower level meetings than he, because I left 20 years ago, and Andrew's risen almost to the extreme top of emergency services in our state. And the combined energy in those rooms of those meetings he would be in would not be wonderful. So for him to now be like, I'm starting to recognize this stuff, I think it's awesome. So yeah, very good. Anyone else? Paul?
Yeah, I'll just jump in. Similar to Andrew, honestly, most of us, and I think us gentlemen here on this call, from what I can sort of ascertain, we're aware of it's really about having awareness, and we have so much support from the universe in our day-to-day life, in so many areas, whether it's synchronicities, whether it's guidance, whether it's intuition, and so many things happen to help us. Life happens for us, not to us. And really, when we take that moment to just be grateful for those pieces that happen, when I ask a question, then a teacher or some information comes into my path to help me with that piece, or if I'm, needing to resolve something, solutions come forward to help me resolve it. So, we really are an amazing group of men in an amazing, creation here of this earth and universe and everything else. And so, I'm just grateful for being a part of this grander plan, grander, creation of consciousness, one might say, and then we get to connect and experience great things together.
Yeah, awesome. And on that, like, we're talking about, like, recognizing it in different situations and things like that, couple of days, well, over the last couple of weeks, I've been listening to a particular podcast that I stumbled across, and it's a lady, and she has this channeled information, and I have just found it incredibly fascinating to listen to, and it makes me feel good, like that the world is awesome and everything is great, and I'm feeling good. And I listen to a lot of really out there stuff, and I rarely share it with my wife. So, but for some reason, something came over me the other day. And I mean, of all the podcasts I listened to, this should have been the last one I would have shared with her, because, for her thinking I'm a nutter. And I'm telling her, and then once I started to spill the beans and tell her what this was about, she's like, oh, like I can see the look on her face. And so she's come back and she said, well, that information is so like foreign to me, so out there. How can you just believe it? Like, and she's, how can you like da 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 da? And then she just looked at me and she goes, it's your intuition, isn't it? And I went, because that was going to be my answer. Like, and I sort of started to realize, like, oh, I wonder if I should have even shared this. But anyway, it leads on. And she's like, okay, all right, I get it, that you're intuitively able to discern, the validity of this information you just shared. And then she goes, you know what? You should use your intuition more when it comes to me, like her. Because, and I was like, it was so true. She goes, you use it in all these things. And if I'm not cutting things to the mark they should be at, she pulls me down instantly. She's like, she lets me know when I'm not doing stuff right. But she said, you know how powerful your intuition is. You know how intuitive you are. Like, so she's like praising me. She's like, like she's got me on a pedestal higher than in my own mind. Like I've got my intuition here and she's got it way up here. And I'm thinking, it's not that good. I'm striving for that. But so she's like praising me up, but she goes, you need to steer it over here. And I'm thinking, so true. We've only been married 39 years, and we've had talks like this through the years, but they've never been around. You should use your intuition more to be more, hearing me and that sort of thing. And so it was very powerful for me. And I'm like, you're right. I should. And I'm thinking, yeah, I have had intuitive information that I've just ignored because it's just so everyday, So yeah, that was a bit of a slap around the head, wake up call for me. And yeah, use it for the everyday stuff that's super everyday. Yeah.
No, that's
Anyway,
awesome. Just to add to that, my wife's the same way. My wife's like very logical, Like I'm more intuition when it comes to intuition. She's like, oh, that's like blah 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 stuff for a lady, talk about women's intuition and all that. She's like, nope. But like over the years, it took a while, especially starting me becoming an intuitive life coach. It took a while, and then once it starts. Like she started like, okay, wait a minute, he might be onto something. Like this is something might be going on. And the more and more, and the thing is, I start realizing that she's starting to transform too. She's starting to see me like make that complete transformation. And she's like, okay, now if this is you just lost like 60 pounds and you're working out, you're doing hold on. There's something going on with you that is a lot bigger than what I'm thinking it is. So I think right now we're at a point now where, and you're right, I had to use the intuition with her too, but I had to be careful too, because I'd be like, what's wrong? I know something's wrong. And I'm like, no, you gotta leave it alone sometimes. Sometimes you gotta leave her alone, Intuitive is like, back off, then you go talk to her. But no, you're on point. I mean, like, and I relate to you completely because we tend to use it out there, but we also need an environment. And I got 3 little boys. So now I'm teaching my little boys. I'm teaching them the heart and the mind. I'm teaching them how to manage their emotions. We're all frequency, we're all vibration. All the emotions are vibration, and increasing the awareness. Now the 2 types of intuitions, you know what I mean? The local and non-local. You got the local internal and the outer, trying to understand the boundaries. And just, it's really cool, man. Thank you, Doug. You just hit me on something, so I'm like talking now.
Good. That's what it's about. Jon, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in. I appreciate the conversation around awareness. This is often what I'm trying to teach my clients, to really connect to what's actually happening, right? And dialing it in so that you can see things that are beyond our, let's say, our senses of our eyesight. They're using all of your senses to, as antenna, as if you will, to kind of pick up on everything. But I think the thing that kind of gets a little bit lost is the other part, which is you need to trust yourself. And so, Doug, when you were telling your story, what I was thinking is, what aren't you trusting in that moment when you are picking up signs and signals from your wife that you're not sharing? Because you already know the information, you already, are practiced enough to feel it, but then there's something that gets in our way where we no longer trust ourselves. Not that we don't trust the other person, but we don't trust us.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, Jon, you and I could go into a coaching session here now and you could pull me through this whole thing, but yeah, no, you're right. I hear you. Yeah. I've got something else I want to share, but while we're on this theme, does anyone else want to jump in on it at all? No. Okay. Mark and Jon were talking earlier about their moms, and Jon's mom's gone. Mark's mom came to him in a dream, and it reminded me of my dad passed about 18 months ago, and he was 92, and he'd lived a very hard life, etc. And he unfortunately was not very well at all the last year or so. So he was in a nursing home. And he hated it there, absolutely hated it, being in there. Just his lack of privacy, he didn't like needing help, et cetera, and got right down to the wire. And the night before he went, as I hopped into bed, I just saw this vision of him. And I saw him get out, because the last couple of weeks, like probably the last week, he was bedridden. And prior to that, he was on a walking frame, walking extremely slow. And I just saw him leave his body, and I didn't know if it was happening at that moment or not, and flying around that nursing home, literally like, just like as a spirit or whatever, like Casper the ghost sort of thing, just whipping around that thing, happy as can be, like basically almost like giving everyone the finger. I got out of that body and I'm happy, I'm finally free. So the next day we go to the nursing home, and my poor sister, she had sat there all night with him, and she left about 7:30 in the morning. My wife and I got there about 8, and my older brother was there, and mum was there because she's in the nursing home as well. And the 4 of us were in the room, and a couple of hours later, cut a long story short, Dad transitioned, and we all knew. Like, it was just, my wife later, I said to her, "How are you going?" She goes, "I felt privileged to be there," because it was the first time we'd been anywhere with someone passed. And she said it was like, amazing. Like, it was a really good place to be. We were so, and now I really want to be, hopefully, be with my mum when she goes as well. It's and the same thing happened. When he transitioned, my brother went and got the nurses, and 3 nurses all came in with their stethoscopes, and they all did their little thing, and then they all turned around to us. And it was during COVID, so they all had their little masks on, and they all looked at us and said, "Oh, we're so sorry, like, yes, he's definitely gone." And I was standing next to my brother, and my brother used to be, Andrew knows my brother well, used to be in emergency service as well. And I don't know what he thought of me, but I just said to these 3 nurses, because the vision just came back to me again. I said, "Right now," I said, "you do not need to apologize. My dad is so happy right now. I can see him flying around this nursing home, literally saying, fuck the lot of you. I made it. I out of that shit body. Like he was just like elated. And they're all sort of looking at me, these three nurses. And my brother just sort of never said a word. And I didn't swear, but I said, he is so happy right now. He's out of that body and he's just whipping around this nursing home, like flying through walls, and he's just out of here. And and that was, it made the transition for me. I don't know how it did for my brother. He's never commented on that since, good or bad, or just never brought it up. But yeah, so those times of transition, I think, and I just happened to, I guess, and this is how I found Mark. Somehow or other on my Spotify feed one day, a podcast just came on that I didn't even select. And it wasn't specifically the one Mark was on, but it was about near-death experiences. So I then kept listening to this podcast, and then Mark came on it, and I thought, oh, his story is awesome. I've got to talk to this guy. And so I just find comfort in it. It's very challenging losing our parents, but I just find comfort in that there's where they're going to is they're happy to be there. I'll just leave it at that, I guess. Yeah.
Doug, thanks for sharing that. I was just going to say as a validation that my dad was a Bible thumper. He was Southern Baptist, brimstone and fire, and he always had a hard time with me and all the stuff that I knew and my near-death experience, especially. But a couple months after he passed away, he came to me in a dream and he said that I was right. There is no hell, it doesn't exist. It was all man created. But then he said one of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life. And I've listened to Greg Braden, Wayne Dyer, the list goes on and on. He goes, Mark, you seem to be in this race to be perfect. You might want to get out of a race that has no finish line. That today, to this date, is one of the most profound things I've ever heard anyone say. And to come from my dad, who was brimstone and fire, Jesus zealot, he had the Bible memorized, was really amazing to hear them say that, to hear him, convey that message to me.
Amazing. So yeah, and I guess that picked your dad up a notch in your eyes, that he's now got this realization of, so, and I get it brings you comfort. Yeah.
No, thank you for that, Mark. I definitely like that. I think there's a couple of things you guys said, and I think one, it was trust yourself, because sometimes those guys, like that's one of the things. It's like, when it comes to the transformative experience, especially, if it's from childhood or wherever you come from or whatever, though, it's like filtering through all that stuff with the emotions and all that, and to realize that our memory is not to hold on to the past, but to reconstruct our new future, and I think I have to give myself a little grace, and it's a good reminder for me to give myself some grace and give myself to trust myself to understand that. And I'm really glad that I even showed up, because I was actually struggling a little bit before I even came on, because I'm trying to prepare for some stuff, some PowerPoint presentation I got to do it. I'm trying to make it perfect, Mark. I'm trying to make it perfect. And I'm glad you said that, because I'm trying to make it perfect and I can't, and I'm getting frustrated. And to hear those words and to trust yourself, that helps me out to really kind of reflect and reground and attack it at a different angle. Thank you for those words, guys.
Awesome. And I know with my, like, how I met Eric was I studied for a year at a intuitive life coaching academy, and I was the only guy out of about 24, maybe 30 people. And like a week or two after I graduate and leave the 1 year course, all on Zoom live, Eric signs up there. And it's like, so I'm still on the Facebook group, and I see now all of a sudden there's another guy there, but we didn't overlap. So after a few months, I reached out to Eric and we started chatting and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So with the program I started, like training as the coach, I had put all this pressure on myself to then, like, oh, who am I going to coach? Am I going to coach people one-on-one? Am I going to coach groups? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? And I had so much pressure on me to get it right and to get it perfect. And then it's just like, I wanted all this. And then all of a sudden, a month or two ago, I had the thought for this group, and this just fell together so easily. And this is only the second, group we've had, but it's like, if I never even had another one after this was just ridiculously easy to put together, because it's like, oh, I know all these cool guys, and I'm like, I wish I could get to talk to them more often. And it's just, yeah. So that pressure, like you're saying, Eric, that we put on ourselves, is just crazy, because we're trying to do it other people's way, of how you hear all these examples that I did it this way, I did that way. And then I've never heard anyone do what I'm doing right now. It just, like, just start getting the people together that you've already met and have a chat. And it's like, oh, this is so nice. And there's no pressure. We can just pop in, pop out, and if this thing goes on and I have dozens of these things every couple of weeks, over the years, and some of yous pop in like once every 2 months, great. It's just like, yeah. So yeah, I was striving for perfection and putting pressure on myself, and I was frustrated because I knew I wanted this to happen and all that sort, and now how this has come together, this group is just, for me, it's just awesome. So yeah.
No, I just want to add to that. Thank you, Doug, for this, because like I said, I mean, for me, I mean, in my hometown, it's just kind of me and whatever Zoom and how many people I talk to, through the internet or whatever, though. But it's really great to, like, to go through things. And I know we know about the groundness and the awareness, but just to have that community, that connection with other dudes, to go, oh yeah, I've been through that, or what's going on, or here's some tips, here's some advice, just to have that camaraderie, to like get that breath of fresh air and then get back in the game. I really appreciate you putting this together, Doug.
Yeah, cool.
Doug, I want to thank you about doing this too, because, when you think about it, when you look out there in I wanted to say the social media type arenas, the ladies, bless their heart, with the divine feminine rising, they're getting together, they're getting in their groups, they're doing their yoni healing, they're doing their womb healing, they're going down the beach, they're doing group things together, they're working with each other, for each other, as the divine feminine does so well. Us guys, unfortunately, tend to be lagging that a little bit, which of course makes sense, because it's raising the divine feminine, and we're the masculine, or predominantly masculine, we're going to kind of struggle with that a little bit. But kudos to you, Doug, in bringing this group of awesome gentlemen together, in a much larger group, obviously, that are there but just haven't turned up today. Because this gives us an opportunity to come together, share, find the similarities, find the differences, but be in support of each other regardless. And I think that is really powerful, because this is the time us guys really need to come together. We are, one would say, in the minority. And so, this is a beautiful way to be in support of each other, share ideas, hey man, I went through this challenge, how can I help you? Those sorts of things, to be able to help each other out. I'm part of Mankind Project, which is a much larger organization, different but similar in a way. That's men in support of men as well. But this is absolutely awesome in what we're doing here today. And I'll be up the next one, Doug. If it's not 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning my time, I'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. So the first one was at, I think, 4 a.m. Paul's time. So that's why I've just got to flex them around day of the week and time of day. Yeah, and I know, like, even for Phil, like, this is 10 a.m. your time, and as I know, because I think the last one was just before Christmas, and here in Australia it's summer, and like, after everyone wants everything built before Christmas, and Phil, just as much as he wanted to come, he had pressure on from clients to get stuff done. So I'll be changing the times around, and we're just to try and work it for how it works for all of us. Yes. So anyone else, anything they want to share? Totally different topic or anything, whatever.
I got an idea. Like I know Mark talked about he sees auras and whatnot. I think mine more is like a lot of the clairvoyances, like the seven different. Well, I think more of the four types. I see more. I do a lot of dreams. I have a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of metaphors, symbolisms, and just some of it is straight to the point. And then I have a lot of I get a lot of visions and a lot of the I knows, the clairaudience, where it's like I know something's up, and then go for it. So it's like a little bit of that, and so a lot of it's numbers too. I'm noticing since I've been really into the stars and the astrology and pretty much everything aspect, a lot of the modalities, and really tapping into a lot of the modalities in there. There's a lot of good information in all those, and it kind of like when I have those meditations, it's kind of like I'm huddling with the entire team. Like my mind, my arms, like everybody's coming in the huddle. Like everybody, let's have a team huddle and figure out what we need to tweak, what we need to troubleshoot, what we need to hone in. And I believe what Paul, I'm not sure, Paul and John, do you guys, is it more like a mediumship, or is it more any type of declares? I'm just curious.
Well, I'll just jump in. I mean, I used to be just primarily claircognizant, but as life's moved on, all the others have stepped in: clairvoyance, see the energy, see auras, all that side of things. I'm grateful. Honestly, for me, the clairvoyance, for example, just turns on and turns off. I don't try to. If I need to, I can, but generally, I either see stuff or I don't. But the way I look at things like this is it's a beautiful way, including intuition. It's the tools that we have, because we are multidimensional beings. We are much more than just this physical form. And so it gives us the opportunity to gather more information in the moment to be able to help us, guide us, whatever it may be, and that's what makes it more powerful. We can move in different ways in different situations based on the additional information we get. Whereas previously we were just entrenched in our 3D. So that way, the downside of that is that you just got a lot less information to make an intelligent decision on, and so, for me, this whole idea of being able to read the situation, read the people, gather the additional information, and it's not in a manipulative way. It's in a way to be able to help me make a better decision or help someone else in a more profound way. And that's really what lights me up. So I know it's not a really direct answer to your question, Eric, but I try and tap into as many of these as possible to use them as they come forward to help me be a better person for someone else, help someone else, whatever it may be.
Well, thank you for that. And I think that's what I'm trying to figure out, because when, like, me and Doug, we've been around a lot of women, and it's cool to see guys. I've never heard, like, I talk to guys, but I don't know what the guys' superpowers are. You know what I mean? Like, what are there? Because we're more hidden. We kind of keep it to ourselves, So I'm just kind of curious, since I'm in a room with guys. I'm curious of what your guys' superpowers are. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll jump in then. I appreciate the prompt, Eric, around this. I mean, I'm not sure what even some of the things are that you mentioned exactly, except that I relate to kind of the huddle, right? Bringing everybody in and seeing, what part speaks to you. I would say for me, it's right. It's all through sort of the prism of awareness and trust. And then what I've come to recently is I then start to visualize. It starts to appear visually to me, like the answer to the problem as I'm working with a client. It just sort of appears like a movie to me. And in that process, I'm also listening to my body. So I guess if we had to apply a label to it, it may be more somatic for me, right? Really looking and paying attention to the way my body is responding. Anything from the hairs on my arms standing up to a feeling in my stomach. And for men, we call that part of intuition our gut, right? Like, oh, men would be like, yeah, my gut, it tells me to do da da da. We're just talking about intuition. It's the same thing, just kind of a little bit of a different label or identity to it. So that's what I'm using, both for myself and for my clients. I'm really trying to pay as much attention to whatever is showing up and not to ignore it. Again, to trust it, to know that that's my brain is making connections in a way that's unique to me.
So you're like allowing all the flow to come and you're just deciphering the data.
Yeah, and I'll just say to a client like, nope, that's not it. Right? I don't work the way that other coaches. I'll be like, no, that's not it. This something else is calling to me. I've had clients say to me, "Are you psychic?" Because I think it's a way of understanding human behavior, and we kind of fall into certain patterns, and you see some of those patterns enough where all of a sudden the pieces start to fit together. And that's really what I can add. It's like, I'm seeing you in this way. Have you thought about this? And they might say, it's funny that you mention that because as a child, I always thought that. And so maybe it might be that I'm seeing through the facade of age and experience and the things that wash over us, as we get older, and maybe seeing a client's inner child. That might be what's speaking to me.
Well, thank you for that, man. Yeah.
And I'm just looking in the chat. Paul's got the, hey gents, if you want to stay in touch outside of the calls, his email. Just on that one, if there's one of the guys here you think, I'd really like to communicate with them again, if you go to their podcast episode, look in the show notes, their contact details will be there. So it's quick and easy to find them if you want to communicate. What else we got? Paul says, you said it, John, you did it in a way that is unique to you, and that's perfect. And Andrew says, I heard a quote recently where it's posed that everything, issue, problem, learning we engage with must start with self-awareness. I think I believe this. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. I'm just getting...
Yeah, while you're mentioning that, Doug, and thinking about the next piece, also there's a conversation about, you guys probably all heard it too, where, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it, so, we have to evolve beyond that to a higher level of thought, a higher level of consciousness and awareness to be able to, move ahead, solve the problem, so to speak.
And that's, for me, that's what intuition's all about, hearing an answer to the problem. And it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same thing. We're going to solve it from a different angle, and we're just open to those unusual, crazy ideas. And if we're in a group, we brainstorm it. Andrew, with emergency, we're at an emergency, and we've got 2 or 3 of us quickly nattering, and you may need to make some decisions pretty quickly here of, what are we going to do? Let's brainstorm it real quick. And, that collective energy, those 2 or 3 heads together, boom, and out something pops that's like, oh, that's different. Haven't heard that before. Let's give it a go. So, yeah.
Just further to the points you've just made, I'm becoming acutely aware that it's easy for me to put a point up there about self-awareness, but oh God, I see so many males who just don't want to go there. It's like, I don't want to go in there, it's scary. Or I don't want to go in there because people will think less of me, and all these different aspects of it. So that's a real, I know it's a real challenge for the male part of society, and I don't necessarily have the answer. It's a very personal journey for each of us. But talking about being aware, when I'm with people, I've gotten, as we all do in life, when we're interested in something, you get better at it. And for me, trying to read someone or read a room or whatever, I've gotten better at that. And the ones who don't want to, jump or go anywhere near self-awareness stand out for me now. And on occasion I'll try to engage with them, off the side and to see whether I can assist. But it's a bit of a case of leading a horse to water. And I'd be interested in anyone else who's had experiences of that, where people that you can probably help by through connection, just they're not giving you any sockets to plug into.
That's a good way to describe it, Andrew. Yeah, they just won't allow. They've got stuff in their past, recent past, or back to their childhood somewhere that whatever situations happened at the time, it's bringing back memories or whatever, and they're just like, we're not going there. I've had there possibly would be some serious hurt in their life back there, and it's going to bring that up, and they just won't open up at all. And they put on the big physical facade. They may be physically big they put it all out there to keep the world away. This is very stereotype, and not all like this, but they might have the big muscles, the big tattoos, the don't talk to me because I'm scary looking.
The big ego.
Yeah. And they've got the big thing, the ego, the whole thing, and they're the ones who are hurting inside the most. And they're the ones, because they know if they did start to open up and talk about this stuff, the waterworks would flow. There'd be snot running out of their nose. They would be babbling messes for a couple of minutes, and they're shit scared of that. And but if they would do it just once, they would just relieve themselves of that so much, because every time they hide it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, So that's a good
And
point.
one thing that comes to me about self-awareness too, it's like it's never over. Like I realize, like the more I work on my self-awareness, you're still evolving to be the best character you can be, So there's always going to be going against the grain, because as you grow, you're going to introduce yourself in the new environments, new areas. And then you think you're self-awareness and you got it going, and all of a sudden, like, oh, you're on easy again, and memory starts coming back up. So you're kind of like trying to like come back and re-strengthen again, and developing a new shell, like a new creation, to develop it stronger for the next level. What I've noticed about self-awareness for me, I'm noticing that it's never over. But once it's increased, you're constantly just kind of just leveling up every single time, because it's always something coming.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, we've been going for about an hour. If you guys want to keep talking, I'm really happy to it, but I'm also aware of your time, and we've all got things to do and stuff like that. I'm fine. Does anyone else want to chip in with something else that's come to mind, or something that's dropped in you wanted to share? Or no? Okay. All right. Well, we'll wind it up. Roughly in 2 weeks' time, we'll have another one. No pressure for you guys to come. I'm happy if 2 or 3 people turn up. We had 6 today, which is excellent. So yeah, just I'll send out an email message or however. And I do need to streamline that system a little bit. I've got a few people on text message, on phone, some on Messenger, and some on email, and I'll try and bring it together just to help my admin on it with a bit. So, all right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk again another day. See you later.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Love it.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank
Take it easy, brother.
All right. See you later. Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.